Today we're talking about why you stop trusting your intuition and love and how to get it back. Because you can know something 150% and still talk yourself out of it. That's exactly what we're unpacking today. If you're not subscribed yet, hit that button now so you don't miss what's coming this season. Welcome to the first episode of season 6. I'm really excited to talk about learning how to trust your intuition. Plus, I have guests. Now, I want to talk about the difference between knowing and trusting. You're probably very intuitive if you're listening to this and you have that sense and you know what that experience is like. It's using it in the right ways and in the ways that you need. You've been with me through season 1 through 5, or maybe you're just joining me, so welcome. And you can identify an emotionally unavailable man in the first 10 minutes. You can see him across a crowded room. You know your patterns and you still second guess yourself. That is the issue. What's missing is that felt sense of your own yes and no in real time and trusting it. You can have all the pattern recognition in the world and it doesn't help when your nervous system is lighting up in this guy's presence and overriding anything you intellectually know. Every time you talked yourself out of a no, and spent weeks or months or possibly even years, like I did, recovering. Because the override is not a small habit. It's the central reason that you keep ending up in the same place. And what I was doing over and over again, it's like, being with the same guy in a different sweater, is how I put it. Despite all of the work that I had done, like the merry-go-round of hell. You're just going around and around in circles. Even when spiritual teachers would say to me, well, sometimes if you experience the same thing over and over again, it's because there's a new layer, blah, blah, blah. Maybe that can be true, but I know that you know the difference between going over the same thing over and over again versus learning something in a new way. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about like the literal feeling of Groundhog Day with Bill Murray. If you've never seen that movie, go see the movie Groundhog Day, because it's exactly what, in a spiritual sense, we're talking about right now, is that feeling of just going around and around in circles, even though you're changing, even though you're healing, even though you're doing all the things, the journaling, the crystals, the manifestations, the affirmations, and here you are again. So in season 6, I'm going to give you the practical art of hearing yourself. And then take it to the next level where you can learn how to trust yourself and actually make that choice, because it really is a choice, a decision to listen to that voice. So first you have to become aware. You have to really know, what does my yes feel like? What does my no feel like in my body? How to tell them apart from fear. A lot of women ask me, what's the difference between my intuition and a fear-based thought or a fear-mongering type of thought? How to use those signals before a date, during the date, and after the date. So this season is not going to give you more information about unavailable men. It's the practice of coming home to yourself so completely that unavailable men and unavailable love loses its pull. All right, so diving into my story, I was a Reiki practitioner starting in 2007, went through my levels and became a Reiki teacher in 2010, possibly early 2011. And I was expanding my intuition at that point. I started professionally doing intuitive work and being an intuitive for clients for money in 2007. And so I was developing my craft around that. I was really learning how to hone in on getting messages for people, seeing images, really connecting with them and helping in an energy healing / intuitive psychic work that I was doing. And I was very good at it. I had amazing testimonials. People were like, that's spot on. I can't believe you picked up on that, all of those things. So I know I was very intuitive, and I still am. The issue was, in my own life, I was still spinning around, and this is exactly a scenario that would happen. So I would meet someone and feel this intense spark. So it was more like the way I would describe a cattle prod. It's like being electrocuted pretty much, and being like, wow, that intensity must mean that it's super spiritual or it's my destiny that I come together with this guy and it's just so intense. So I had that intensity spark thing going on. And the more intense it was, the more I would be like, well, it must be preordained and something I need to lean into. The big but that was happening was my intuition was going off like alarm bells you would not believe. My intuition was like, no, you can't do this. Do not go out with the guy. Please, no, let's not do this again. And I'd be picking up on all kinds of things. And it wasn't even coming through in a scary, fear-mongering type of way, which, is the greatest thing to decipher between your intuition and your fear is your intuition is always very profound, very wise, and very calm. It's not like this is the end of the world, and it's not like do or die, drop everything and run. Your intuition will be very calm and just say, he's not for you, move on, move forward. So even those calm, intuitive messages that I was getting very clearly, I would override it and I would say, no, this is very intense. It's a spiritual event. I must know him from a past life. He's the guy that I've been waiting for. He's my twin flame, whatever I named it. It was like, no, whatever my intuition is saying to me, I'm going to override it because I know better. And I'm going for the big picture, my spiritual destiny. And this intensity must mean that he's the one. Okay, so I always had the override. I always had the reasoning. I always had the I'm better, smarter, and I can see more, and I'm invested more in my need to move forward because of the intensity, because of the spark, because of what I made it mean, that was more important to me. My intuition was just, it's like, okay, thanks for your input, but no thanks. I didn't have any respect at that point for the importance of my intuition and what it was actually doing for me. Because I'm like, I know better. My intuition is going to lead me to a life of loneliness and being a monk. And, maybe it'll help me with my spiritual life, but it's not going to help me with finding a relationship. And that's what I assumed. That was, wrongly. And with my limiting belief and limiting vision at the time for what my intuition actually is, that's what I believed. I was like, that, my intuition, maybe it's good in some ways, but it's going to lead me down the lonely path because I assumed my intuition was going to just give me another year of being alone. And I'd already been alone for many, many years. And I ended up being single and by myself for 10 years without any real prospects. And so I was like, no, I don't believe you. So thanks, but no thanks. And that's what I really want to talk about this season. And I'm going to give you a lot of context and a lot of ways that you can look at this differently and practical tools and the real in-depth ways that you can change this pattern of overriding. And so now, hopefully with that story and my examples, you can see how it works in real time and how that happens. So the question, if you've been asking yourself, like, why do I keep choosing the wrong guy? Why do I keep choosing this guy even though I know he's unavailable? I know 150 million% that this guy is bad news, and yet I still choose him. Well, this is the reason why. You have a lot of stories possibly. You have a lot of reasons around why your intuition is not helpful to you, is not leading you in the right way. There's reasons why you wouldn't be trusting it. Think right now. So what are some of the reasons that you wouldn't trust your intuition? For me, it was my past experiences. It was all of the toxic relationships I had already had. How I was in my 30s heading straight for 40 with no prospect and no end in sight to these patterns. And I felt at the time that I was listening to my intuition. Maybe I was listening to my intuition in other areas of my life, but I didn't trust that it had my best interests at heart for a relationship. So I don't know if you can relate to that. Maybe you're very good at being very intuitive, listening, and following the guidance of your intuition when it comes to everything else but your relationship. Maybe you blame it on your past. You say, well, I followed, look where my intuition has led me. Look where I am now. Look what's happened to me. There's a lot of ways to reframe that and see it in a different light, and also see where you might have been choosing. And we're not going to be laying the blame on ourselves and shaming and blaming. We're just going to be aware. So thinking of my let love in method, we're going to become aware of where you have overridden your intuition. What are the situations where you've said no, thank you to your intuition and did a direct pivot? I can almost point out every single situation where I was like, no, I'm going to pivot and do my own thing. And if you're honest with yourself, if you're aware, and also using the acceptance, which is the compassion, the love for yourself. It's like I made those decisions because of what I've experienced and my fear and my pain from my past, whatever it is. I made those decisions, and that's perfectly okay and it's acceptable. And of course, it makes sense that I would have made those decisions, that I wouldn't have trusted my intuition, that I tangled all my intuition up with other things like limiting beliefs and self-sabotaging and all of those fun things that we get into. So where have you been doing that? How you stop doing it or how to get it back is it's never really been gone. It's like, okay, now I'm willing to have a relationship with my intuition where I ask for the guidance and I trust my intuition enough to follow it when it comes to love, when it comes to my heart. And that's how you get it back. You just start listening to it. But first, you have to learn how to hear your intuition and what specifically it sounds like and feels like in your body. What's a yes, what's a no, all of those things. So those are the things we're going to go into this season. And if you take anything away from this season premiere of season 6, I want you to know that you absolutely have a connection to your intuition, that you are intuitive as you are, and it's just about using it properly and in the way that it was meant instead of overriding it. And one of the point that I wanted to make, so I became so good at being intuitive, but the way I was doing it was servicing others and not myself. And so, of course, that's fine when it comes to clients and all of that. I want to be very much focused on what I can feel for them, what's their path, what is their higher self saying, what messages do I get for them, obviously. But I was doing that also with my relationships and dating, where I was tuning into him. I was tuning into what he needed. I was getting a read on him. It was almost like I was treating him like a client. I was like, okay, what can I feel, sense, and hear about him? And I was so much focused and tuned into him that I was completely out of my own body. I was outside of my own experience and looking at myself from in their shoes. I was putting myself in their shoes, but I was totally out of my body, out of my experience. The more we are outside of our body, the more we are not connected to our own messages and using our intuition to read other people, the more we're going to be spinning our wheels and the more we're going to keep choosing and choosing what we don't want and choosing the same kind of guys over and over again. And so how to get it back? Get back into your body, into the last part of my let love in method, the true connection. That's where you want to be truly connected to yourself, your true self. And so I have an integration prompt that I want you to write down or just take in right now. Where in my dating life am I knowing something I'm not yet willing to hear? Where in my dating life am I knowing something I'm not yet willing to hear? Give your intuition the space to be heard right now. Take some time to journal. You can do a little integration thing after this episode. See where you get and move forward with me in season 6 because we have a lot of exciting stuff going on. We're going to continue on with the theme, which is trust yourself to find love, the intuition season. You know the patterns, you can name the red flags, You've done the healing work. And what you don't have yet is a reliable body-based relationship with your own inner wisdom. The kind you can use when you like someone and suddenly cannot think straight, when something feels almost right but not quite. Those type of scenarios where you get all turned around. And we're going to find something that you can use as a practice in the moment, before, during, and after a date, on the apps, when you're about to override yourself again, and then have your practical dating tool, which is your intuition. I want to mention my Intuitive Path to Love course. This season, we go deep on the how. If you want to work through the actual practices alongside each episode, the Intuitive Path to Love course is where you do that. It's 4 audio modules and 7 chakra meditations designed to help you build a real working relationship with your intuition. The link is in the show notes. So go check that out. And you can't make Mr. Unavailable love you, but you can choose someone who does. Remember, love is closer than you think.